Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. We're going to take just a few more seconds to let people trickle into our webinar. So we'll get it going in about 30 seconds.
While we're waiting for everyone to come on, Sean, and I know people are listening in. I don't know if your kids are probably too old for Easter egg hunts, but I have to tell you something really magical. Over the weekend, we went to an Easter egg hunt. And you know how every Easter egg hunt, they always have like a golden egg or a couple golden eggs that if one kid finds it, maybe they get like cotton candy or this or that. So my daughter got the golden egg and she was so sweet because she was like, "Oh, Mom, I don't need any special treats." There was a little boy crying who didn't get it. So she gave it to him. Guess what the church gave out if you got a golden egg?
Tesla.
$50. They were like,
Wow.
"Here's a $50 bill for winning the golden egg." Well, then she's 5. She was devastated that she gave it away.
Oh, no.
I thought that was so crazy. I've never heard of such a thing.
That's awesome. Hey, well, let's get started here. Thank you to the several hundred of you who have joined us. My name's Sean Brown. I am the CEO of YCharts, and I am joined by the incomparable, wonderful Sam Russell. Sam, you want to say hello?
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here for, I think, round 3 or 4 at this point with you, Sean. We need to have a Sean and Sam show, I think, because we love to talk about this kind of awesome takeaways and data points, but I'm so excited to be here with you today.
People come for your gems of wisdom, and they come to make fun of my gamer headset. So we are developing quite a following. But hey, listen, before we get going, let me give some introductory remarks. Sam and I are here to talk about retaining or losing clients based on advisor communication. So we're going to go over a survey that YCharts did, talk about a framework to think about communication, and also give you some tips and some examples of some great communication. But please keep in mind that this webinar is intended for educational purposes only and should not be used or considered as financial advice by either YCharts or FMG. Couple other things. First of all, this session is being recorded and will be available on the YCharts YouTube channel. If you wanted to subscribe, please do. If not, it will also be emailed out to all registrants after this meeting. And the last thing I wanted to say is there is a Q&A. We'd love to get your questions, so feel free to stick them in the Q&A section at the bottom of this webinar. Sam, any other opening comments before we get into it?
No, just wanted to also tell people we do have the chat open, and I love seeing and learning from all of you and what you're seeing work in your own firm. So please utilize the chat to communicate with us and each other as well.
Yeah, so let's get going here. Sam mentioned Sam is the chief evangelist at FMG Suite, and I'm the CEO of YCharts. Let's give a quick preview. So things have changed dramatically since COVID hit, and whether it was COVID or whether it was the bear market that followed COVID, the bar for communication between advisors and their clients has really been raised. There are meaningful consequences of not communicating well, and we'll talk to you about what those consequences are. But once we get through all that, it's on to well, how do you do that? And we'd love to share some tips with you about how we do that. Sam and I were talking though before the session, and just quick for anybody who wants to add anything into our chat, just interested in how many of you do you believe your communication tactics or strategy or approach has changed post-COVID, post kind of June 2020? We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Tell us in the chat, are you doing anything differently than you were before in terms of maybe how often you send an email, or if you have a newsletter, or Did you go to some virtual events and now you're going to keep them even though you could have in-person events? It's really, I'd love to hear what some of you have seen or are doing differently that's working for you.
All right, so feel free to load that up, and let's get started here. I am probably going to do more speaking at the front end of here because I want to tell you about a YCharts survey that we did for advised individuals. And then ask Sam, as always, please jump in anytime you want, but the real gems are going to come at the end where Sam teaches us a little bit about how to better communicate.
Oh, and real quick, sorry, everybody is saying the chat is disabled for them, so it works for us. Sorry, for all of you, you can put it in the Q&A. I'm so sorry about that.
Sorry about that. Okay, so let's talk about this survey that YCharts did last December. It was a follow-up to a survey we did in December of 2019, nearly an identical survey. The only meaningful difference in the respondents was actually they were nearly identical. I remember last time in 2019 it was 666 respondents, and that made me very uncomfortable because I do not like the number 666. This time the team was chartered with getting more than 666. So long and short is we had a good cross section of age, net worth, and advisor affiliation. And again, the people we polled were all people who are advised. So the nutshell of what we learned was really interesting. Number one is the days seem to be gone of advisors retaining 95 to 97% of their accounts every year. What we saw in our survey was that 22% of individuals changed advisors sometime post-COVID. Number two, we found that advisor success can be directly impacted by their communication strategy. Frequency of communication is a really key, frequency and relevance of communication is a really key factor in an advised individual having a sense of comfort in their financial plan, in their willingness to refer friends and family to that advisor, and also in their willingness to stick with that advisor. And the third big thing was less frequent contact can negatively impact clients' confidence and comprehension. So again, if you're not communicating enough, there are implications of that. Historically, when all of the quarterly statements were coming back and showing higher and higher net worth, people forgave their advisors for less than great communication. That's no longer the case. So let's talk a little bit about some specifics here. So on this chart, you'll see the dark purple number. That's a good thing. That says that those polled said, I did not switch nor consider switching to a new advisor. Every other color is not so good. So, 47% of people either switched or seriously considered switching. And I show some.
So huge. I think we need to pause and just really think about that for a second, because that is a tremendous, tremendous number.
It really is. And if you look at the bottom, Sam, the part that's super interesting for me too, is we try to break out a little bit older respondents, those over 60 years old, and those with higher net worth. And what we found out in these numbers, again, if you say the purple is you're safe and all's good, actually for the older advised individuals, they were much more likely to switch or consider switching. And those with higher net worth also. So your biggest bread and butter accounts, older, probably a longer established relationship and a higher AUM, those are the ones that are most at risk.
It's really, really interesting. I'm just looking through some of the comments coming through, and well, actually, I'll let you say this first, and then I'm just going to pinpoint one that came in that I think is really useful for maybe everyone to hear.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about a big difference we saw between the 2019 study, which is on the right, and the 2022 study, which is on the left. This was asking advised individuals to talk about the factors they are most interested in hearing from their advisor about. Interesting thing, if you look to the right, is talking about portfolio performance was a third most popular thing or third most requested thing. The really interesting thing is when you look to 2022, that became the very most important thing, talking about portfolio performance.
So
So Sam,
interesting.
what's that tell you?
So yeah, so a comment from Brad, he said, our communication strategy to clients is more about life planning and less about investments in markets. This has worked well and built deeper relationships. And I've heard this a lot from folks over the years, that one of the things that they've tried to do is have, whatever the cadence is, let's say it's a weekly email that you establish with your clients. They get used to that level of communication where you're talking about life events, you're talking about maybe just the cycle, okay, it's tax time or year-end tips or whatever, so that when the market does get really volatile or big changes are upon us and there's breaking news we need to discuss, all of a sudden including that in your weekly email is not going to raise any red flags because they're already used to hearing from you. But then there's another person in the chat that said, this is from Steve Parker. He said, we get some type of message out monthly, but then if there's something in the news, timely that we need to talk about, like the SVB failure or any uncertainty in the banking industry, then we have a timely email that goes out. And that also, having like your standard one once a month, and then supplemental timely pieces, we've seen really work really well at FMG. So I think if you're going to do anything less than once a week, when there's breaking kind of news happening, you need to make sure that you're getting to it really quickly. Because I always say, I don't know about you, but I want my advisor to be the one distilling information for me and not, the reporters over at CNBC. I want somebody with a really good voice of reason to be able to help me, you kind of cull through all that's out there, clickbaity, if you will, and make sense of what's happening.
Yeah, and we're going to touch on that in a few slides. It's I'll save that punchline, but couldn't agree with you more that if there are any advisors who believe that when people are looking for financial and capital markets news, that they're only and always coming to their advisor, that contradicts actually what our study said. So Sam, real world example of just some good communication.
So, a lot of times people will say, how do I communicate about things like portfolio performance without scaring people or, being alarmist in any kind of way? Because ultimately, for most of us, we want people to be invested for the long haul. We want them to realize there's always going to be a quote reason to sell. And so communicating with visuals that, you can tell people over and over again, stay invested for the long haul. There's always going to be dips. There's always going to be a reason to sell, but we have a plan. We're going to stick to this plan. We know that. But when all of a sudden the market feels like it's tanking or you have a sharp decrease, it's easier said than done to listen to that advice. But to show them a chart, something like this, that allows them to look back in time and see the dips in perspective against the overall market gains, is a really useful communication tool that works well in all mediums. You can pull it up in a client meeting, you can utilize it on a social post, you can put in an email. So I really encourage the advisors I work with to use visuals like this in their marketing.
Great. Awesome.
Someone was saying, just since that's a YCharts chart, is a chart like that readily available to them? They would love to have it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me give a quick one. And Sam and I both hate to get too commercially or advertising-ish.
Yeah, but she's asking.
Well, I'll answer the question. First of all, we'll make all this information available after slides. YCharts subscribers get all of our studies and links into their own account for every single chart that we use ever. So it's a neat utility. We keep them all in certain folders, and you can just link on them, change some of the verbiage, make it your own, and it's yours and it's done.
Love that.
So Sam, you're really the expert on multi-channel marketing. One of the things our study showed here is there are all kinds of different ways that you can communicate with your advised individual. Email is still king, but interested in your perspective on email and things that aren't email.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I think one of the things we want to think about is in marketing, we have top of the funnel activities and, middle of the funnel and bottom of the funnel. And by funnel, we mean if you picture a funnel, the top of the funnel is bringing people in, making them aware of your brand, people who've never heard of you before, right? So, of course, it's going to be things like referrals, but it's also going to be things like social media and having, a post that all of a sudden somebody's friend comments on so they see it in their feed. When we think about, though, communications with clients, it's very different. Your client doesn't want to hear, they might not mind seeing in their feed your take on what's happening with the banking crisis and what they might want to consider in their social media feed, but they also expect that one-on-one communication directly to them. But something like a text message, or which not everyone can do anyways, a phone call can be disruptive. So email is still the most preferred, I think, because it's one-to-one communication. So it checks that box, yet it allows them to digest it, understand it, save it, forward it to their, significant other on their time. And one of the things that I've seen work really well for a lot of the advisors we work with is video email. So if you really want to kind of create more personalized communications, but you still want to utilize the tactic that's working really well for your clients, you can use tools like BombBomb or Vidyard or, Loom, where you're allowed to record yourself quickly and then send it via email. So I highly recommend trying something like that out. If you have a message you want to get out really quickly and you don't necessarily want to type up something long.
Sam, there's an interesting question just came in. Is there any such thing as too much contact with clients?
Yeah, I love this question. I get it all the time. I actually recorded a video for our YouTube channel not that long ago where I talked about nobody ever fires their advisor for communicating too much. You might be annoyed by it and you might say, hey, could you remove me from your daily email list and just communicate with me when I need to know something, right? Someone can always opt out from over communication, but people will let an advisor go for not communicating enough. So I wouldn't worry about over communicating. The worst thing that's going to happen is if you're going to be maybe perceived as a little annoying in someone's inbox, as long as you're not being salesy, right? So if you're just educating, there's no one's going to be annoyed by that. However, if somebody's asking me what's like the best cadence for email strategy, I say once a week, have a weekly email that you send out, and we'll show some examples here in a second, that so your clients get used to that weekly communication. They see you in their inbox all the time and just share great information. And I think if you go,
Yep.
I don't know if
And
there's
Sam, the
anything
only thing I wanted to
else.
say is for those of us that were married, it's similar to the question, can you tell your significant other you love them too often? My wife tells me no. That doesn't mean every time it hits the mark as effectively as another moment, but you can't be faulted for communicating too much.
I mean, just look at this chart. It was 1% of people said, I'm not interested in receiving my advisor's perspectives. 1%, that's all, right? So don't play to the exception, play to the rule. But here's a great example from Chad Chubb. He's an advisor over at Wealthkeel. So he does something called the Wealthkeel Weekly every single Thursday. And you'll see there, right? It says Happy Thursday. Here's the Wealthkeel Weekly, or what we like to call news you can use. So in every single weekly email, what he does is he takes like 3 or 4 articles from around the web that he thinks are doing a good job communicating something that's happening, right? So it's been a busy time for financial advisors lately. So here in this one, he's talking about the U.S. moves to protect all deposits at Silicon Valley Bank in a bid to stem a wider fallout. He summarizes this article. So he didn't write this article. It could be a Wall Street Journal article, what have you, but he summarizes it for you. He's reading it. He's digesting it on your behalf as your advisor. But then at the bottom of the email, he always gives something specific to his audience. So he specifically works with physicians and doctors. And so here, right, he talks about how there's a growing level of concern with First Republic Bank because a lot of physicians use that bank because they have low student loan rates. And then he goes on, talks a little bit more. This is the kind of email that is going to get forwarded from a physician who works with him to a friend saying, hey, you should be aware of this if you're using, First Republic, right? This is really helpful and informative content. And he does this every week. Every week isn't a big news story, but establishing that weekly cadence steal this strategy, right? You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to write a blog post every week. You can just take really popular articles that are already out there and summarize them for your own clients.
That's awesome. So, can your communication strategy impact your success? Let's talk about what the survey said. On the left, the upper left, would you consider your advisor's frequency and style of communication when deciding to retain his or her services? 90% said yes, and more if they're higher net worth. Lower left, would you consider the frequency and style of communication when you make recommendations or referrals? The answer again is 90 some odd percent. And then when you move to the right, and we've got a couple flavors of it, do you wish, long and short is nearly 50%, 47% of people wished their advisor talked to them more regularly regarding their financial plan and progress towards goals. So that says half advisors are doing it well and half not. And I do remember, I think it was called Lake Wobegon, where 90% of parents thought their child was of above average intelligence.
Yeah.
So I don't think there are too many advisors on right now that are saying, well, I'm in that 50% that's not communicating well. But I would ask you and say, we've got several hundred on here. A couple hundred are not communicating well, and we should all use that as opportunities to communicate better.
And I think one of the things that's really interesting to point out here specifically is, of course, having a roundup of articles and things like that is very different from, hey, Josh, here's how you're doing in terms of progressing towards your goals. One of the advisors I work with, one of the things that I loved was they found a reason once a quarter to do a touch base one-to-one email. So let's say they had 100 clients, they broke it up. So, they're not necessarily doing all 100 every quarter. So it would be like 25 a quarter. So it's basically once a year, but once a quarter for them, if that makes sense. And what they would do is they would take a quarter of their client base and they would look through, how they're progressing towards their goals. Maybe they just bought their first home they've been saving for, or maybe their daughter just finally graduated from college in May. So that was what happened that quarter. And they send them a personalized, individual email basically saying, hey, you've been working with us for a long time to get your daughter to college. Congratulations, she's a graduate, right? It's not anything big or flashy, just like an individualized email, letting them know they're paying attention to these life events and making a note of it. And that kind of communication can go such a long way with clients.
Agreed. Let's talk about whether your clients are actually understanding what you're saying. This is another question we honed in on, and I think one of the interesting things is the green bar on the right is your clients understand about 70% of the information you share with them. There are some gradients on this though, and the next 3 pairs of columns, for those that are contacted infrequently, they're only retaining 64% of the information you're sharing with them. So they really aren't hearing you as well. For those with more than 500K in AUM, they are hearing you a little bit better than those that are less. And those that are younger are hearing you less than those that are older. So there's that term Henry, which is what, high earners, not yet rich. Mm-hmm. Your Henrys aren't hearing you very well if you are not regularly and consistently communicating with them. So I thought that was kind of interesting permutation, that when you communicate well, a high proportion is understood. When you communicate irregularly or poorly, whatever communication you're having just isn't well understood. But Sam, talk about a couple of examples.
Yeah, so I just wanted to share some things that I've seen work really well, and that, a lot of this stuff, we want it to be scalable, right? So if we're going to take the time to record a video, we want to repurpose that video for other things. So I love this example here. This YouTube channel is the Retirement Planning Education channel. And so it's just taking questions that a wide swath of your clients are going to have. Something like, is my Social Security check going to be taxable, right? It's a 5-minute video just recorded in his home office. He then uploads it, adds some subtitles. You can use a tool called Veed, V-E-E-D, and that's a free tool that you literally upload the video. It will add the subtitles for you, and then you can export. And he could send this just to his clients. He can post it to YouTube, and whenever a new client comes on or an existing client has the same question, he can say, yes, here's the answer. But also, since just you and I are here talking about it today, if you want to share this with your parents or you want to share this with your significant other, here's a video summarizing the same thing. So I love this strategy because it's very scalable, but it allows the person also to get the message in video format rather than reading through maybe a longer piece.
Hey, Sam, we got another interesting question, which was, hey, you guys have been talking about communication, communicate frequently, make it relevant, all that stuff. But if you're communicating too much, what happens to the really important message that you send through? How do you prevent that from getting lost in the noise of a bunch of other communication?
I love that question. And here's what I would say. When you share your weekly newsletter, have it come from an email sender name that's different than when it's just you communicating one-to-one. So if I'm just sending an email to you, Sean, it will just, come across as Samantha Russell. But when I send my weekly email, it might say Samantha at FMG or the FMG Marketing Weekly, right? So the sender name of the email is different for the one-to-one communication versus the weekly communication. That's a really easy way then for your clients to really subconsciously, even in their brain, pick up on the messages that are different than the marketing or the monthly check-ins.
Oh, that's a great tactic. I love this one, Sam. Talk about this one, because I know anybody who's ever signed up for a 401k plan, including myself, you say, what is this and how should I select?
Right. So I think, I love, I'm not an advisor. And one of my favorite things about the advisors I work with is when you're able to take something that feels really complicated to the general public because we're not in it every day and just really distill it down in a way that makes sense. And so this is an example here from Travis where he took, a screenshot of a typical 401k investment options document. And he basically broke it down to say, here's what to pay attention to, and here's not what to pay attention to and why in bullet points. So he's not, getting paid to help people manage their 401ks. That's not money. He has assets under management, but he does work with a lot of Henrys and he does work with a lot of people who are socking money away in their 401k every month. And he has a financial planning subscription service that he can service them through. He is establishing credibility with this group of people and really showing that he's providing helpful information that is going to help them. He has it in a social post. He can have it on a blog post. And this is something that will get reshared, reposted. People will share with friends. And you never know, again, when we're thinking about top of the funnel, how who's going to see it, right? So this might be something that a young person sees who's not yet ready for a relationship, but they share it with their parent and they say, oh, look what I saw. I'm feeling so much better, mom, about my new 401k. And then the mom says, oh, who is this person? We're actually looking for a new advisor. So again, just a way to share really helpful content. Think outside the box. What are the types of questions that you get asked about all of the time? And how can you answer them in a helpful way?
Sam, I literally had that exact thing happen at a dinner party a few weeks ago. My wife, unbeknownst to me, had forwarded on some communication from our advisor. She forwarded on to a friend. They were talking about the EV, Tesla and Rivian like stocks and thoughts about it. My wife had heard that, forwarded it on to her friend who was looking to change advisors, saw just a really thoughtful piece put together by our advisor, and this individual called our advisor and said, I'd like to start a conversation about how you might manage my money.
I love that story.
Isn't that awesome?
I love that story.
So we talked about this a few minutes earlier. This one was pretty startling. So clients' primary source of information on markets and performance of their investments. 38% of clients primarily rely on their advisor for information about markets. 38%. I'm pretty good at math. That's a whole lot less than 100%. 38% of people rely primarily on their advisor. They're going other places. And when they go other places, they're learning a lot of things. They could be learning it from Fox News. They could be learning it from Reddit. They could be learning it from Barron's, Bloomberg. They could be learning it from some other source. I don't know about you, Sam, but it's nice to know that people are interested in a lot of information, but I'd be fairly insecure about that if I were an advisor, knowing that they're going a lot of other places for their information.
Well, and I think that's also, people are going to read the news. They're going to go on the internet and read things. But I think that's why I like that strategy, like the one I showed you earlier from WealthKeel, because he's taking an article that was a headline article in the Wall Street Journal that a lot of clients probably saw, but he's able to say, like, this is my take on it, or here's maybe where the article is veering into kind of an exceptional case, which you don't need to be worried about most likely, right? So he's just offering some level-headed thinking around the piece. And I think that's really what people are looking for. We can't prevent people from reading other takes, but we can help give perspective.
Absolutely. And I think the big thing is the set it and forget it isn't really the mindset of the client. The client's saying, it's on my mind now. My kids are coming up on college and it is a rocky market and I want to know about these things. If you aren't reaching out to them, and some of the gradients of this show that advisors that communicate more frequently are more relied on for information. And Sam, to your point, give them your spin on an article. Tell how that article in the Wall Street Journal ties very nicely into what you're talking about. You only have to write 2 sentences. The Wall Street Journal wrote an entire article. It becomes yours. It becomes your advice, and you've woven things together. I think that's great.
So here's just a couple more examples, because I'm a big believer in examples helping us, they really teach. So this is an email that an advisor I know sends every Sunday. So he has found with his particular audience that Sunday is the day he gets the most opens. His audience tends to be the type of professionals that prepare Sunday evening for their week. And so they actually will digest his email and pay attention to it. And so he sends it on Sundays and he calls it the Sunday Drive. And he calls it the Sunday Drive because it's a Sunday drive around the internet, which I think is fun. But he always has a chart of the week, a quote of the week, a couple articles of the week. And so in this one, he's talking about this chart that he found online about banks accessing the discount window at the Fed. And it's just really explaining something that I think most Americans aren't thinking about, most consumers aren't thinking about, and why it had such a big ripple effect for the rest of the economy. And it just shows it, right? Again, we're such huge believers at FMG and YCharts and visuals. It shows it in a visual to really help explain. So again, this is a really, really great tactic if you're thinking about your email communications.
Nice. So let's wrap up the survey. If you were just to remember a couple things. 1 in 5 of the advised individuals in our study switched advisors since 2020. Now, some people say, hey, that didn't happen to me. And my response to that is fantastic. You're doing some things very right. We did have a statistically significant, population that we surveyed. So 1 in 5 switch, 1 in 4, so another 25% on top of that considered switching. These are the ones you have to be worried about. Hey, listen, you might have only lost 0%, 5%. Please don't translate that to mean that another 25 or 50% of your clients aren't considering leaving. And this isn't meant to be a scare tactic. It's meant to just be information relaying. 9 out of 10 of your clients consider your communication relevance and frequency when they determine their comfort with your financial plan, when they determine whether they want to refer friends or family to you, and when they consider security and being advised by you, or whether they should consider being advised by somebody else. So 90% consider how well you communicate as they think about this. So building trust and building understanding is really important in the wealth building process.
And
so
I just want to say one thing too. A lot of people are saying how shocked they are by this data because it hasn't been true for them. Or I shouldn't say a lot of people, but a few people have mentioned that. One thing I do want everyone to really think about it is a lot easier for people to pull the plug on any service when they don't have to face the person face to face. And now that so many advisors are really serving clients digitally throughout the entire country, they don't necessarily meet with them in person. They don't see them in their local hometown community anymore. If somebody is unhappy with the service they're getting, it's easier than ever for them to say, you know what, this isn't working, or I'm not happy with it and I'm leaving. Because before, you sometimes have that discomfort, right? Like, I'm going to run into this person all the time at the country club, or this is my mom's friend and I'm going to see them all the time at the restaurant we go to on Sundays or church. This is no longer the reality we live in more and more. So I think that people's loyalty is going to be less than ever before if they're unsatisfied, which is a great opportunity for all of you doing so well to pick up more clients.
Yep. And since underlying custody is so consolidated now, the switching costs, whether emotional or the paperwork switching costs, aren't nearly as high as they used to be. So,
good point.
So with that being what the survey said, and again, we posted in the link, and we'll certainly follow up in our follow-up email with the raw survey and a link to having that for your own. It's pretty deep, and you'd want to dive into it. Let's talk about some ways to improve your communication. And Sam and I talked about 4 key steps to remember, and then we wanted to kind of conclude with showing you a lot of really great examples. So
yeah, and I think some of these we've talked about already, so we don't need to beat a dead horse, but again, committing to a cadence, definitely number 1, because you want people to know they can expect to hear from you regularly. But then 2, thinking about new touch points and opportunities, and Sean, I'll let you, say your piece about both, but I just want to point out one thing we learned at FMG over the last 3 years, which is the open rate for timely emails, right? Something where it's talking about the banking collapse, or it's talking about, what's happening in Russia, and is it going to impact your portfolio in the markets, or the yield curve inverted? What does it mean? When you talk about something that's timely, your open rate, or the open rate we have found, is a more around 40% for email communications. But if it's just more, regular communications, it's more like 20%. So when breaking news does happen and you share something about it, the open rate and people's hunger and appetite for it is much higher.
Yeah, and the only comment I'd make on top of that is you always have the option of doing a narrowcast, which is sending something to one or a few people, or broadcast, which is sending it to all or a large group of people. The great thing about timely news is it's relevant to all. So it's like, create your message once, blast that out to everybody. People aren't saying, wow, these insights on how the war or this event impact my portfolio. They're not saying this needed to be tailored specifically to me. They're saying, wow, that was great information that I received, and I trust a lot of other people received it too. So touch point's a great one. Sam, do you want to give some perspectives on champagne or sparkling water and what we mean there?
Yes, I love this, idea or analogy, which is that, we can't treat every single client like our champagne A-list clients. It's just not possible to give everybody the same amount of attention depending on your book. However, everybody wants to feel like they are your champagne's, level client, but you can give them sparkling water. You can make it special for them in little ways, like the example I mentioned before, where the advisor did those quarterly special check-ins where they're just looking through what's happened to the person over the last 3 months and finding a reason to send a personalized email saying something kind. That is kind of the idea here of that sparkling water, and it goes such a long way in client retention.
One of my favorite quotes from the book Animal Farm was, all animals are created equal, but some animals are created more equal than others. I think we'd all, in our moments of complete honesty, say not every one of our customers is equal to the other. Find a way to serve the equivalent of champagne to your most valued and most equal customers. And the other thing I think we'd add is just prioritize your clients and their goals. clients are all different. We all know that. Some may be interested in stability. Some may be interested in income generation. Some may be interested in DEI related things and ESG related considerations. The more you know about your client and their interest outside of what's their birthday and milestones in their life, the more you know about them, the more relevant and tailored your communication to them can be.
Of that.
So Sam, now is the point where we're just going to show a couple examples, right? And
Yeah.
hey, certainly there's no finer form of flattery than copying what some others are doing. We're not all in competition with each other as advisors. So wanted to show you some great examples out there that we keep accumulating, and hope you like them.
Yes. And I just wanted to point out too, if you think examples are great, Sean shares them all the time on his social profiles, and I do as well. I actually use a hashtag Sam swipe file, and you can click on that hashtag and see tons of examples of what other advisors are doing in their marketing. So connect with me on LinkedIn and Twitter to see those, and Sean as well. But again, visuals to me are so great at communicating complex ideas, and they really help people retain the information very, very quickly rather than reading, which takes longer. So both of these are examples from YCharts, which I absolutely love. And again, if you're a subscriber to YCharts, you can access them and utilize them in your social posts, in your blogs, in your emails, and make them your own. Give them, your own titles, things like that. So the one on the left is showing the effect of missing the best days over the last 25 years. And then the one on the right is just a different version, a bar chart of the same information.
Yeah, I mean, you can write 3 paragraphs, or you can pull up a quick and easy picture, some of which, again, Sam, what do we do for a living? We help people either develop insights or communicate them. When they're communicating, it's always a visual element to this, and you can write 4 paragraphs, or you can pull up a chart that we created, make it your own, or make your own, and blast that out, and it's really effective communication in a short period of time.
And then these are just some great examples from different folks on social media that you may be familiar with or not. You can give them a follow. So the one from Charlie on the left here is talking about the Fed's balance sheet hitting the lowest level since August 2021. And he then offers some perspective, right? It's still 4.2 trillion higher than where it was at the end of 2019. So again, helping distill some of those headlines. Oh, it's the lowest level. But hey, when you see it in a chart, you realize it's actually not that low. So love that one. Again, powered by YCharts. The next one is Indeed job postings, and kind of showing, from different sectors. And then the last one is about how long it actually takes to double your money and why it's probably less time than you think. So a lot of people are, asking about exactly where in YCharts they can get that. I don't know, Sean, if you're gonna share that afterwards.
Yeah, a couple quick answers. Number one is we just put out a separate study, which we'll make sure people have access to, which is 10 compelling charts to share with your customers. And within that deck are links into the YCharts platform where they would be saved in your account. And if you don't have an account, come set up a trial account, a free trial account. Try it, see if it's helpful to you, and then decide what you want to do from there. But we tend to load up our platform with a whole bunch of free to use charts and let our subscribers use them.
I love that so much. So here's another example. I know this one might be a little hard to see, but you'll get the slides after. So this is from an advisor, my friend Ruben Miller. And, what I love about this one is he's saying that, what happened with Silicon Valley Bank is just a reminder that money in the FDIC insured bank account is only insured up to $250,000. So he was really early in posting this, like when news was just starting to break. And then he just reminded people, you can take that money and go to a custodian and purchase what considered to be safer securities. So it's just very informational, showing a graphic with it that catches your attention. I just think, again, the more you can provide genuinely helpful information around timely topics, the more brand awareness you're going to get, because people are going to want to follow you, pay attention to you, especially on social media, if you're giving them helpful information. And then this one is actually an example from FMG. So if you are a subscriber to FMG, and for those of you who signed on later, FMG is a marketing platform specific for advisors. So you could take any of the charts from YCharts and upload them to your website in FMG, a blog post you're writing. We also push everything through broker-dealer or RIA compliance channels and then archive everything. So you can just use our platform as a way to schedule and create your own content, but a lot of our subscribers love the content we create for them. So this is an example of a quick email we typed up really, really fast. Regarding what happens at the Fed and, kind of how the markets typically respond to it, again, including a visual. So if you're looking for someone to help you create these quick communications with a quick turnaround, I can certainly talk with you offline afterwards, but that's what we do.
Yeah, and just to maybe repeat and draw things towards close, just a couple more slides. So YCharts, it's a tool. It's a platform that you can use to develop insights and communicate those insights. One of the things we do is we put out regular blog posts and regular studies, like our client communication study, or you're seeing some of them scroll up here, monthly market recap, funds flow things, all available within the platform. Grab it, make it your own, put your name on it. That's what we do for a living. We're kind of Intel inside. And Sam, give everybody a quick reminder of the other things you guys do.
Yes. So we also just launched at FMG a new program. So again, if you're an FMG subscriber to the marketing suite, so we have a separate website platform. You can also have a website and the marketing tools with FMG. If you're using FMG's marketing tools, you go into your content library and under, I think it's under current, the name might have just recently changed, either current client content or timely, you'll find everything related to what's just happening right now. So there's social posts that are around timely topics, and there are emails and blog posts that you can use. We also just launched this new program called the Do It For Me marketing program, where myself and Susan Theater, our CMO, have a team of marketing strategists, and every month we work with them to create an editorial calendar where we put out content and serve as the strategist for your team. So we'll post to your social platforms for you. You don't even have to log into the tool. We'll write the emails for you. And when timely news breaks, you'll get an email like this in your inbox that says, hey, beyond what we already did for this month in the, a pre-made calendar, there's something crazy happening right now with banking. And so here's an email we put together that we think your, contacts would want to hear. If you approve it, just say yes, and we'll send it out on your behalf. And so on the left-hand side, you can see what that email looks like. So this is our new Do It For Me program, again, where we really execute everything on your behalf. And if you're interested in that, I can tell you more about that later.
Yeah, and Sam, one of the questions we always get asked is, well, what about compliance?
Yes. All of FMG's content goes through a very rigorous compliance process. I sometimes get angry because some of the things I wrote come back and they say, you're just a little too close to the edge with that. And I'll go, oh, come on, in 2023. But I have to say, okay, I get it. And so we really truly play to more of the lowest common denominator and really be careful. But with any of these things, the best part is you can tweak it too. So it is all compliance approved, and it will go through your typical compliance channels, and everything is archived. But if you want to tweak anything and then resubmit it through compliance, you can do that too.
Awesome. So Sam, you're the master.
Sorry, I just muted myself for a second. So I just want to point out, I know it can feel overwhelming. And again, if you are overwhelmed and you want to get in touch with me after to learn more about the Do It For Me program or FMG and how you can utilize our tools, please do. But if you're not considering that, or you just want to repurpose and create more of your own content, one thing I can't, highly suggest enough is to what we call repurpose content. So if you follow me on social media, you'll see I'll have, a LinkedIn post where I'll talk about something. And then I'll take that same LinkedIn post and turn it into a Twitter thread with, 10 points in a thread. And then a week later, I'll post a video to YouTube talking about the content that I already put on social media and using some of the visuals from those posts. And then maybe a week or two after that, you might see an article in wealthmanagement.com where I wrote a blog post or, an op-ed about it. So I think sometimes people worry they're like beating a dead horse when they're, repurposing. But at the end of the day, remember that a very small sliver of your audience is actually seeing what you put out on YouTube, on a podcast, on a blog post, on social media. So don't worry about, saying the same thing over and over again. I like to say, if you feel like you have to repeat the same message one more time, you might throw up. Most people are just hearing it for the first time. So really repurpose that content to make the most of it.
Yeah, I have to tell my teenagers things 7 or 8 times. So I think most people need to hear it a couple of times. Don't be shy to over communicate. In the chat, we had a lot of people say, how do I get in touch with you guys? Here's how you get in touch with Sam. Here's me. I will tell you, both of us post a lot on social media. If you just want to get to know us and benefit from some of the content we post, please do. Love to have more followers. Love to follow you back and learn what you're doing. I will also say, super cool. Got a QR code for anybody who wants to put their phone up to it right now. If anybody wants to learn more and start a free trial of YCharts, please feel free. But let me just maybe sum things up, and then Sam, I'll leave it to you for a couple comments before we hit some more questions. The communication game has changed since the pandemic. If your clients have all stuck with you, good for you. That's awesome. But please don't mistranslate that into being you don't have some clients who are looking around or looking for answers somewhere else besides you. Improve your communication game. We tried to show you 4 steps. They'll be available in this deck and in the copy of this video. And we're always happy to provide you either Sam and I personally or on behalf of our companies with product, tools, platform, content, information, distribution approaches. Love to help you with this. We just feel passionately about this cause.
I totally agree. And, I was just thinking as we're sitting here, if you're an advisor out there that currently does use YCharts and FMG, get in touch with me on social media because I would love to connect with you. And I think just there's such a natural affinity between the two platforms because visuals work so well in marketing and the visuals that you can create in YChart are great. I would love to interview you and hear more about how you're doing it. If you want to know more about FMG, you can email me also just S as in Samantha Russell at, I'll put it in the chat because it's not on here. S Russell at fmgsuite.com. And that's my email address if you'd rather do that than on social media. But I'd be happy to answer any questions you have or connect you with somebody if you have questions about your account. But thank you so much, Sean, for, hashing it up with me on this today. I think what you guys are doing to bring awareness to the importance of client communication is just so crucial.
Yeah. Hey, let's try to take just a couple of the questions, Sam, that we have left. One thing was somebody said, where can I find the emails you just mentioned? I am a user of FMG. Thanks, Doug.
Yes. So you're going to log into your FMG account. And if you don't have our marketing suite tool, if you only have a website, that's why you won't see the email. So you'll have to double check that you have our marketing suite tool. But if you do, on the left-hand side, you're going to see a little tab that says content. You're going to click that, and then you can filter by different types. So it'll say blog posts, social posts, email. You'll click email and you'll see them there.
Okay. Also saw a couple people reference to FMG just asking, is this relevant to Canadian advisors?
Oh, yes. So we actually have quite a number of Canadian advisors who utilize our service and platform and content. We don't necessarily have right now the timely emails of what's happening with Canadian legislation, the way we do when the Secure Act just passed. But oftentimes the timely stuff is more related to the markets. And so it applies to everyone. But we have a ton, hundreds, thousands of Canadian advisors that use our tools.
Well, let's draw this to an official close. Again, a reminder, this deck and this webinar will be available on the YCharts YouTube channel. They will also be emailed because 73% of people really prefer email. They will be emailed to you after it's done being uploaded. So stay tuned in your inbox. And Sam, as always, thank you. It's wonderful to learn from you every single time, and I do every single time, and look forward to future discussions.
Oh, I so agree and absolutely love doing this with you. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your week.